Hopefully everyone can hear me. Dive right in. We got a lot to go through. Just a side note, if you're interested, you can follow me on Twitter and you can send me any questions you have throughout the talk, and I'll check them later. And also be sure to use the Casual Connect hashtag. What I thought I'd do today is talk a little bit about the experience that Wild Tangent has distributing games and helping game developers be successful, especially from a monetization standpoint. And as it relates to Android, there's a lot of experience that we can bring, a lot of philosophy that we can bring to the table. There's a lot of confusion out there. There's a lot of opportunities and a lot of pitfalls. So I'd dive right in and show you a little bit about what's going on in the market. So we'll go through the graph stuff first. Really just establishing the point that we kind of all intrinsically know. We come from a history of everyone trying to get a PC on every desktop, trying to get a game console in every living room, at least with regards to the games industry. But what stands in front of us is an opportunity where literally every person will have a smartphone in their pocket ready to go. And so that crossover point is coming, projected at least from Morgan Stanley within a couple of years. But obviously the growth rate of mobile is far exceeding what's going on in any other platform space. And again, always have a hockey stick inside of your presentation. At least that's the guidance I've been given. What's good news for everyone in the room is that games are actually the #1 activity as far as how people want to spend their time on mobile. Makes a lot of sense. You go into your text messaging, your email, Facebook, get your communication out of the way, and then you want to spend time when it comes to entertainment. And games is one of the most compelling aspects, obviously, when you're dealing with smartphones. #1 activity. Also good news from a mobile revenue standpoint as far as app generation, games is #1. So that means that there's a tremendous opportunity for everyone to actually build a successful business building games for mobile. And lastly, what I found interesting is how do people discover things on their phone? A lot of people have these assumptions that, hey, look, it's all about the App Store. Well, in reality, there's lots of different ways that people find games on their phone. #1 being pre-installed. What games are pre-installed on their phone? What games can they download? What games can they play online? The point is that there's no one single distribution solution for game developers that they should evaluate when they want to make their games be successful. I guess when you talk about mobile, it's kind of required to talk about Angry Birds, so here's your requisite Angry Birds slide just to get it out of the way. I mean, as a side note, does anyone know why they're so angry? They're so angry. I don't get it. Maybe it's because the pigs have all the money or something along those lines. But what's interesting, if you've been in the industry for a while, what you see is every platform creates a poster child, right? Whether it's Angry Birds for mobile, Zynga for Facebook, PopCap for casual, Blizzard for MMO, on and on and on and on. There's always someone that does hit that lottery, and it's a combination of talent and hard work and the right opportunity and luck and the whole deal. But what our job is to help game developers be successful, and it seems like a lot of people think that, hey, if I just do the same thing as those guys, I'm going to have the same level of success. You have 100 game developers, I'm going to be the next Angry Birds. Well, I can say with confidence that probably 101 are probably wrong unless they come up with a good game plan. So the notion of a lottery ticket is not something that you can bank on. It's not something that you can come up with a good business plan for. And so we'll look a little bit about how to create that plan. Another thing to highlight is how mobile has changed how consumers access and play content. Previously, way back when in the olden days, you go to the store and buy a box, bring it home and install it and play the game. And then there was a period of time where you go to websites and you'd access content via websites. Well, now, of course, you access via app stores. But the problem is that the number of apps that are coming is a massive tidal wave. It's projected 48 billion app downloads by 2015. There's a graph here. To some extent, the numbers don't matter. They're too big. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of apps. Android is growing at a faster clip than Apple. But the point is that you're literally one of a million. You're one of a couple million. And that's a very, very difficult position to be in order to be discovered. You're effectively static. You're just noise. It's very, very difficult. So you have to have partnerships and a game plan in order for consumers to find you. So when you talk about Android, you actually need to take a step back and go, where is this all coming from? And it's fair to say that BlackBerry was the first person or the first company to bring smartphones to the business environment. But it's fair to say that iPhone has been tremendously successful for Apple and was the first one to bring smartphones to consumers. And they deserve a tremendous amount of credit. They've sold the heck out of iPhones and iPads. They've created the App Store, and a lot of the reasons why we're all in this room is to learn how to make money off mobile because of what Apple did. But on the other hand, it'd be easy to stand up here and talk about what's wrong with iOS, so let's go ahead and do that. There are a lot of plagues that have been unleashed by Apple into the psyche of mobile developers, and it personally drives me insane when I talk to these guys. So let's dig in a little bit and learn more. First off, it's closed distribution. This is the first platform in history of scale for game developers that is closed from a distribution standpoint. There's all this discussion about Android. Is it open? Is it closed? You know, all these other aspects. I'm talking about distribution. I'm not talking about can you see the source code? Can you develop for it without a relationship? It is the first one with closed distribution. App Store or nothing. That is the only way that you can get your app discovered on iOS. And that thinking, that expectation has carried over into Android. And that's not a good thing. That's a very, very, very bad thing. And so if we look at other platforms, everything that game developers have been working on, all of these have open distribution. A lot of them are perceived to be closed, especially a lot of the console ones, where you can't develop for the platform unless you have a relationship. But the reality is you build a game for Xbox or PlayStation, Nintendo, you can take it to Walmart, you can take it to GameStop, you can put it on a website, you can sell it over mail if you want, you can take it to all these other outlets. You can find your audience, you can find monetization, you can find success. Not true for iOS. You either win the lottery or you lose. I mean, heck, this has been true since Atari 2600 days. I mean, this is not a new concept to have open distribution. It's true for HTML5, even for Facebook games. We recently announced that we have social games on our service, and people are spending wild coins in order to play those social games, and it's been very, very successful. So if you're a social game developer, please come on down and we can have a chat. But the point is that if you're adopting a platform, if you're building for something, you need to have options. You don't need to have millions of options because then you're going to be overwhelmed, but you need to have specifically distribution choice. You need to be able to take your app and put it on lots of different services in order to find success. This, if anyone is familiar with Penny Arcade, this is a great comic that explains the iOS publish process. So in this case, we have Gabe, who's made a game, and he's taking it to Apple and says, I'd like to submit my iOS game. And really what Apple has been doing is just giving them a knife and saying, go ahead, cut yourself. Cut your nose to spite your face. Let's see what happens. And then the question is, well, if I do this, will I be promoted? And Apple kind of throws their hands up and goes, I don't know. Let's find out. They continually create a situation where developers are put in a position to hurt themselves, to hurt their intellectual property, to lower price, to hurt their brand, and not build a sustainable business. This does not create a successful environment. And this is carried over a little bit into the Android market. It's carried over into other app stores. This notion of, hey, let the developer come in and let's just see what happens and create a situation where it's in their best interest in the short term to do things that are going to hurt value in the long term. And it's very, very difficult for companies to be successful and sustain value over time. The other aspect is what this leads to is the tragedy of the commons. For those that didn't pay attention in economic class, tragedy of the commons is an analogy to explain how something that is publicly available to everyone can be abused for personal gain, and then eventually everyone suffers, right? So imagine you're in a village, everyone's got the little herd of animals, and there's this open plain of grass that everyone is supposed to leave alone. It's supposed to be for public enjoyment. But you know what? I'm going to go ahead and let my animals graze on there and just nibble a little bit. Nobody will get hurt. My animals get healthier. Next guy goes, wait a minute, he's doing that. I'm going to do the same thing. And on and on and on. And next thing, that entire field that was available for everyone, that was for public enjoyment, is demolished, and everyone suffers. Tragedy of the commons. Well, how does this have anything to do with Apple? How does this have anything to do with the app stores? Well, the reality is that if you create a situation that says that promotion is tied to downloads and tied to pricing, this is exactly what you get. You put a public fixed amount of space, top 25, in the case of some of the app stores, and then you say, go ahead, set price, do whatever you want. Well, the next guy goes, I'm going to drop my price to 99 cents, increase the velocity of downloads in order to get that promotional space. Number 2 says the same thing. Number 3 says the same thing. Next thing you know, all the slots are locked in, 26 guys out of luck, that's it. The other thing that you've done is you've created the public perception that all games should be 99 cents. 99 cents is a completely artificial price point, right? Apple came up with it. It was a carryover from iTunes. A lot of game developers think, oh, I'll just sell it for 99 cents, I'll make it up in volume. Well, they don't realize that the music industry has a completely different revenue stream to make money off of music, right? You can go to a concert and spend 50 bucks. They make way more money off of that than they do necessarily off of 99 cents. Game developers, you don't have that. You're selling away everything for 99 cents, and then you're shocked when you can't make payroll in a couple months. This is not a good situation. And so Apple spins this as, isn't this democratic, isn't this democratic, isn't this great? We're just going to let the community figure out. Well, in reality, developers are doing it to themselves by driving down price in order to gain promotional space that can't otherwise be gained. And things are bouncing back a little bit, but at the end of the day, you've completely set consumer expectations that things should be 99 cents, and that's not a good thing. The other thing that happens is you have this predominant discovery mechanism of top 25. And the problem is that when games, especially in app stores, whether it's Android market, whether it's iPhone, there's something like 230 new games a day. That's almost an impossible amount of content for consumers to churn through. It's, you have a fire hose coming at you, and all you have is a little thimble in order to catch the water. And so what you need to do is come up with a way for consumers to discover content. Well, their solution is to go with the top 25. This effectively becomes a fixed in all time list because they do it based off downloads. They don't take anything into consideration. Why am I going into the App Store and learning again about Angry Birds? I already have it. I already played it. Why are you talking? Why is this premium space talking to me about Angry Birds again? By analogy, imagine if you went to the movie theater and every week it was playing nothing but the top movies of all time. Avatar's on again. I don't care if you want to see something new. It's Avatar. You get to see Avatar. Next week it's going to be Avatar. Week after that it's going to be Avatar. It's a once a decade situation that someone finally breaks through and can finally be on that list. And now you're back to the poster children. You're back to the use case. So you need to have a situation where you can talk about getting promotional placement. Also, if you're on top of platforms, whether it's iPhone, whether it's Android, and even for Facebook, you have to realize that the mindset for platform creators has changed. It used to be create a platform, help developers, provide features, and you'll be successful because you're selling the platform directly to consumers. Now it's been the platform's thrown in for free, and either I'm a hardware manufacturer making money, or I am another service making money with something like transactions with Facebook credits or iTunes. As a side note, if you look at the amount of money that Apple's made off of App Store, and also to some extent with Android, it seems like a big chunk of change. $1 billion here, $1 billion there. At the end of the day, if you do the math, this is a very, very small percentage of money that these companies make. Apple makes hundreds of billions of dollars off of hardware and just maybe $1 or $2 billion off App Store. Do you really think that they're going to be spending their time focused on monetization of apps? They're just happy with adoption in order to sell hardware. Their job is not to make money off of the apps in the App Store. It's nice. It's a nice little ancillary business. Yeah, the numbers are big, but they make way more money in another place. And as far as focusing and resources, you can expect where they're going to spend their resources. Great quote from Fred Wilson, who's a VC who invests in companies that make platforms. You should expect that the platform you're building on top of to do something that's not in your interest. They're going to do something that's going to hurt. They're going to change policy. In the case of Apple, they had the App Store, which had horrible discoverability. A whole cottage industry came up trying to fix it with incentivized downloads, paid downloads. And we can discuss if that's a good or a bad thing, but at least people were trying to find a way to get an audience. Apple came in and said, oh, you're done, no more, shut down, yank up all of the games that have this stuff inside of it. And now developers lost the tool in order to acquire users, and they also lost a revenue stream. I wouldn't be surprised if Apple comes out in the next couple of months with an MDF or marketing directed fund version of, hey, look, go ahead and pay us for discoverability. And the other aspect is that people assume that, oh, it's a 70-30 split, right? I get 70%. Isn't that great? Well, one, you get 70% of nothing. And also, you probably don't stay at 70%. Probably your costs are going to drive that down for customer acquisition into a net 30% business. Look at Facebook developers. They all expect that, oh, I'm going to have 70-30 off Facebook credits. But, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to spend millions of dollars on advertising that's going to be able to get me consumers because Facebook doesn't provide any discoverability, right? They just kind of throw it out there and let the developers pay for it. And this is more of just a soapbox moment for me. I've been in the industry for a while, and I was in conferences like this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and the people standing on stage were talking about, this is what I figured out. Check this out. This is something that no one thought you could do before. And we've gone from a world of figuring out what to do, what's enchanting, to will they let me do it? And are they going to change their mind? And for me, having the microphone, this pisses me off. This is not good for the industry, right? This is thou shalt not. And also, I'm going to change my mind. Next week, it's the 11 commandments. Oh, sorry, it's the 15 commandments. Oh, I'm going to change that one. Everything that you've built your livelihood on, Yeah, I'm going to erode it. I'm going to change it. You're not on a solid foundation. You're on top of some quicksand. So take that to heart, but it just pisses me off. Okay, so why Android? So that was a little bit about some of the source of a lot of the thinking, a lot of the philosophy, a lot of what is driving the decisions that people are making. So let's take a look about Android. Why don't we just build games for iOS? Well, the problem is that you're either going to win the lottery or you're not. You're going to die. You're going to be one of a million. Well, the good news, Android is getting market share. Right? 500,000 devices activated today, 4% week-over-week growth rate. It's on the uptick, right? Over 50% usage projected to be big enough, right? I'm not here to say that Android is going to kill iOS. I'm not going to stand on stage and say the device X is going to be better than iPhone. But what I will say is that that trend, coupled with this ecosystem, is a tremendous amount of financial incentive to figure it out. Right? Overwhelmingly, there's going to be trillions of dollars of market cap that are going to figure out how to make Android successful to be relevant from a market space standpoint and also to be relevant from a carrier standpoint. They can't let Apple have that dominance position. And Apple, to some extent, people don't realize this, they actually don't care. They're happy with their own little closed ecosystem. They're happy with high margin. They're happy with the amount that they have. I don't think they really want to be someone with 100%. They've done it in the past. When you look at what happened between Mac and Windows, it's happening again. Right? A lot of the little petri dishes of all the little hardware experiments that these manufacturers are going through are going to figure out what works and what doesn't. There's going to be tons of tablets that fail. There's going to be tons of phones that fail. But they now have something that they can work on, and it really is analogous to what happened with Windows. Microsoft didn't have to figure out what the desktop size, what the laptop size is. That's what the manufacturers are for. And what does change things a little bit is the carriers and how they come into the ecosystem. That does change things. But for the foreseeable couple of years, Android is going to be a relevant share of the market, and there's going to be lots of opportunities. And that leads to distribution choice. Right? Just out of the gate, it drives me nuts when people say, how are things going on Android, and they immediately start talking about Android market. Like, no. Android is the operating system. Android market happens to be one of the many distribution choices. Of course, Amazon App Store is live, and there are literally hundreds of other app stores, something like 113, 114. I'm not here to say go to all the other app stores. That's going to be a complete waste of time. A lot of them are going to fail. A lot of them are going to go out of business. But the point is you do have distribution choice, and also what we recently announced is our game service. As a side note, we have no interest in being an app store. I have no interest in carrying the Pandora app, which is a great app. I want to focus on bringing our game service to consumers. I want to change how consumers play games off of their mobile devices on Android and also off of their laptops and desktops. And we've also announced that our game service in partnership with T-Mobile, who's going to be the first carrier that we're working with, and we announced that the other week, that T-Mobile will be pre-installing our service on phones and also marketing to their existing customers. And this morning we announced partnerships on the game development side with Glue, Games House, and Halfbrick, among others to come out soon. So we're very excited about the adoption that we have as far as distribution of our service, in addition to the millions of consumers that we already have that we're going to be giving the game service to. So it makes sense also to talk about business models, right? Because if an app store is an app store is an app store and everyone has the same business model, you shouldn't expect success to be different on one versus the other. And one of our unique and unfair advantages is our business model. So if we dive in, we're going to look at the business model for games and also the business model for distribution. So first off, again, just kind of a level set note. When you think about it, you're going to see a tremendous number of vendors out there all talking about payment method this and advertising that. It's just a big, a lot of noise. When you think about it, there's only three sources of revenue. Either a consumer can pay you, another company can pay you, usually advertising, things like that, or the government can pay you. That's it. Everyone else, everything in every sort of way to make money falls into one of these three buckets. But especially what's going on, I don't think Obama is going to be buying us games. So we're going to ignore Uncle Sam there for a second. What's very interesting in the game space has been the proliferation of different business models. It used to be you built the game for the purposes of selling it. And then it became, okay, well, I'm going to build a trial for people to download, and I'll upsell them to the full version, and I'll sell that, et cetera, et cetera. And then it got to the point with app stores where you said, okay, I'm going to have a high price point item, and then I'm going to have a free item, and that free item is going to have in-game crap advertising that covers over my game, and it's some banner ad about becoming some truck driver in some state I don't even live in, which is really what I got from an unnamed ad source that rhymes with AdMob. So if you look at it, what's really interesting is that we now have free-to-play with items. We now have the opportunity to get consumers into a game and let them come into the bar and buy drinks instead of a cover charge. Hey, come on in, see what you like, buy drinks a la carte. And that appears to be successful. We're already trending to an over 50% of the catalog is going to be free-to-play with items. I don't know where that's going to settle in. I personally don't think all games are going to go to free-to-play with items. I think a lot of it now is artificial. I think some games are going to be access-based or ownership-based or MMOs with subscription-based. And I think some are going to be free-to-play with digital items. We already see some hybrids. Guys that have some big brands like EA are trying to do hybrids where you buy it and then you buy in-game items. So that's all going to sort itself out. But the point is that the overwhelming majority of the catalog from a high growth rate standpoint is going to be free-to-play with items. This is important when you look at the distribution channels that you're going to be going at and see if the distribution channel's business model supports the type of game that you're providing. If we look at the distribution business models, the first is the App Store, of course, and we've talked a little bit about that, but I'll speak some more. The other is all you can eat, and the other one's Book of the Month. These are our kind of handy terms to describe the different services that are out there and how people can understand how they work. First is App Store. This is your Walmart. This is your mega store. This is aisles and aisles and aisles of shelving. Throw it out there, see if people graze and find it, set the price point to be really low, and really all they support is buy or free. I'm getting the 5-minute mark, so I gotta go quick. Here's the problem. Here are the averages. You're making about $8,500, I think this is on the high end per app in Apple, and you're probably getting 80% of the paid downloadables are only paid for less than 100%. I mean 100 times, excuse me, less than 100 times. Less than 100 times. That's great numbers for a hobby. That's not a business. That's no way to pay for food, right? That's a complete waste of energy. So now, here's the other problem. Are they supporting your MSRP? If you look at app stores, you're the seller, you set price. Isn't that great? You're in control. Well, first off, you may not know what the right price is. The second off is tragedy of the commons, everyone gets a knife, hurt themselves. All right, let's switch it. Let's go the other way. Let's have someone be the seller where they get to set price. Well, you can't tell them what to sell it for. That's called price fixing. So mechanically, of course they have to set price. But are they supporting your MSRP? If they're giving away your app for free in order to acquire customers, what's happening? You're getting paid a little bit amount, probably 20% of the MSRP, small amount, and they're building an audience who comes every day to get their free app. No advertising revenue, just get it for free. I'll come back tomorrow for my next free app. That doesn't make any sense. Next, all you can eat. You're going to hear a lot more about these. We saw them in the PC space. You're going to hear about them on Android space. They didn't work before. They're probably going to work even less so now. The problem is that you're bringing in a certain amount of revenue, and probably the early adopters from a game developer standpoint may see a little bit of success because they're one of a few. Maybe they're the noodles and rice, right? Hey, if that's all you have, guess what? You're probably going to move a lot of noodles and rice. But as that buffet gets built out, the money gets split out more and more and more. They're probably going to do it based on time. Well, how can something that is a premium game be valued the same as something like solitaire? A minute in solitaire is not worth the same as a minute as a game. The other problem is that they're trying to draft off of what happens with Comcast and Netflix and HBO, and they expect it. Isn't this great? This is what consumers understand. Well, those are movies that are going through their windowing process of monetization. That's not all the money that they get to make. And when it comes to games, you're dealing with things that could be considered movies. You're dealing with other things that could be considered TV shows. The monetization spectrum is way too broad. It's way too big. And putting it inside the solution is probably not going to work out very well. And also, remember, 65% of games are going to be free to play with items. How do you do items inside of an all-you-can-eat service? You've already told the consumer for X amount a month you get to play as much as you want. You can't put free-to-play with items in that service and expect to be successful. The other thing that you're going to start to see is Book of the Month Club. It's just a twist on that, which is every month you get to pick a book. Well, now you've just commoditized price. Everything's expected to be $X.99 a month or whatever it happens to be. And again, how do items work? You've already told them that they get to pick a game that they own. So real quickly, we'll go to our business model. What does Wild Tangent do? Well, what we say is wherever the value is in the game, that's where we're going to be focusing on monetization. Is it access? Is it items? If it's access, then we can provide rental. We can, of course, provide purchase. If it's items, then we're going to focus on selling the digital items. And that's all built off of our digital currency called Wild Coins. Wild Coins are spent for getting rental, which is a unique thing that we have both on mobile and on PC. They're used to spend on digital items. It's okay. and also in order to buy games. The other thing that we do is since we bring that price point down, we take that big chocolate bar and chop it up, we can also use Brand Boost, which is our advertising solution, in order to provide access. And also we can use Brand Boost to give away digital items. And so this is going to be both for social games, where if you're inside of a social game, you can get Brand Boost in order to get a digital item. Also, on Android and other mobile solutions, you can use Brand Boost in order to get digital items in your game. Or inside of our service, you can use it to be granted access to titles. You don't have to decide if your game is free with advertising or whether you have to sell it. You give us the full version of the game, we'll put it into our service, and then we'll monetize 100% of the consumers that come in. Last point, I think, is the notion of a media service. We don't want to be an app store. We want to be able to provide a media service. That means that we're a single touch point. When you get your iPhone, you get your Android, you have icons all over the place. Single icon, green W, go ahead and play games. It's a truly curated catalog. I know that's a buzzword, everyone says it. But at the end of the day, if you are one of a small select number of games that are in there, the context of the value of the games goes up, promotional capabilities go up, you're not one of hundreds of thousands. We can provide promotional capabilities that you don't have to pay for, you don't have to buy advertising, we'll promote you. And also the expanded monetization that we went through means that we can monetize 100% of the consumers that come in order to get your games. And the last point is that we're cross-platform. Consumers can use our service with the same account, same wall coin, same experience, whether it's on their laptop, desktop, or mobile phone. And that's something that's unique. These app stores are being bound to the platform. Consumers are going to have purchase fatigue. They're not going to be interested in buying the games over and over and over again and having lots of different relationships. And so by analogy, if you have the stores like iTunes for music, Pandora is a media service, single touch point in order to access content with a different business model of advertising and subscription. For video, same thing, Netflix and Hulu Plus, different business model with subscription and advertising, and we're the same thing, which is you don't have to go to an app store, buy a game and leave, come to the service, have different monetization opportunities. Another thing that you can do with the service is change that context and therefore increase perceived value. A cup of coffee at home is not worth a lot to you. A cup of coffee when you go to Starbucks amongst a whole bunch of other utility and access things goes up because the perception has changed, the context has changed. Same thing when you come into a service when you're surrounded by nothing but good games as opposed to a whole bunch of really crap, low price point free games. Piracy, another aspect that bears repeating. Android doesn't have a very good history with this. Google does not have a very good DRM solution. I know DRM's a nasty term, but we need licensing solutions in order to protect games. And so that's why Wild Tangent, we have our own solution. You give us an APK, we'll wrap it with our licensing tech and give it distribution in order to protect it. Just a real quick note about what's going on in the Android space, patents. A lot of people think that what's going to happen with patents. I don't know what's going to happen with patents. I know that it may or may not have an impact in the midterm. I don't think it's going to impact in the short term. I think Android is going to continue to grow, but Google did lose on the Nortel patents, and Apple is starting to feel pressure. This is Apple feeling threatened, right? That's why they're suing people on the Android side with some of their patents to try to stop them from continuing to gain market share. So what's your checklist? You're working with a partner that supports your intellectual property and MSRP. Are they multi-format? This is another point, which is we take games that are APKs, we take games that are HTML5 games, we take games that are social games, we take games that are Flash games, we take games that are downloadable games. The consumer doesn't care. We provide everything as a first-class citizen, as opposed to an app store, which is only focused on where's my downloadable APK. That's all I care about. Well, if you have a great HTML5 game, why should that be any different? Right? Consumers don't care. Provide promotional capabilities. Does a partner promise that, hey, look, I'm going to promote you here, promote you there when we do a launch, control the cadence of games that go out? Do they have flexible monetization? Another one, do they have existing customers? For example, we have millions of consumers with credit cards on file and other payment methods on file with wild coins raring to go in order to spend on whether it's their phone or their desktop or laptop. And of course, cross-platform. Real quick public service announcement, right? The more you know. Don't create versions of your games that have third-party stuff inside of it that eventually you're going to need to rip out. Please keep raw versions of your games. I can't tell you the number of times I have game developers that come up to us and say, we can't find the source code, but it's got this thing in it, and that violates some policy that is not going to be able to be distributed. Don't do that. Right? Just keep a clean version of your game. If you have a game, this is the guy you want. Write down that email address. Normally you get just an email box. I'll give you the real guy's name, David Worley. He's out there. Maybe he's in the room. So if you want your game distributed, that's the guy you want. I'll give you direct access, or of course you can go to our developer website. So david.worley@wildtangent.com. last point, come to the party tonight, please. Come to the aquarium. It's going to be crazy. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, if you want to follow me on Google, you can go. I have a shortcut there. You'll see on the invite that we have something about our poker chips. Quick version of the story. Last year, someone left our party with poker chips, which are completely fake. And how should we say, went to an exotic establishment and got some, I don't know, dances for a certain amount of money that had a comma in it. And the person who worked at Establish came to Wild Tangent headquarters the next day wanting to get paid. Because they thought they were real, and they thought we owed them $1,500 or whatever it was. And we're like, please go to the press, please go to the press, please go to the press. But she didn't. So anyway, thank you very much. If you have any questions, I know we're late on time.
Thank you. Thank you.